The secret of genius is to carry the spirit of the child into old age, which means never losing your enthusiasm. Welcome to Bmc News Live in English, brought to you by Al Hilal Hospital and Medical Centers. I'm Narayanan, joining you with the daily news updates. Today's headlines. Bahrain sets model for humanitarian work, said His Highness Sheikh Nasser. Tamkin to launch programs to support Bahrain's career development. Intermediate and secondary school results announced. Saudi Arabia announced a mandatory employment test for Indians. NASA held first public meeting about sightings of UFOs. News in detail. His Royal Highness the Crown Prince and Prime Minister chaired the weekly cabinet meeting. His Royal Highness Prince Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa, the Crown Prince and Prime Minister, today chaired the weekly cabinet meeting at Gudaibiya Palace on the occasion of the royal order issued by His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa to adjourn the first session of the 6th legislative term of the National Assembly. The cabinet commended the strength of cooperation and coordination held between the legislative and executive authorities and their role in advancing the kingdom's national development. His Royal Highness directed the concerned government authorities to retroactively disburse the monthly living allowance for retirees from January 2023 to June 2023. The move follows agreements between the legislative and executive authorities during a discussion on the draft law on the national budget for the 2023-2024 fiscal year. His Royal Highness commended the two authorities' coordination in serving the kingdom and its citizens, as well as the efforts of the public sector, the specialized committees of the Shura Council and the Council of Representatives throughout the draft law budget discussions. Bahrain sets model for humanitarian work, said His Highness Sheikh Nasser. Representative of His Majesty the King for Humanitarian Work and Youth Affairs, His Highness Sheikh Nasser bin Hamad Al Khalifa, commended the great humanitarian role of His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa and his support to charity work in Bahrain and beyond. He praised the motivating and inspirational directives of His Majesty the King to the Royal Humanitarian Foundation, lauding the support accorded by His Royal Highness Prince Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa, the Crown Prince and Prime Minister, to the Kingdom's humanitarian march. This came during the inauguration of the GCC Joint Charity Work Committee, which was set up in line with an initiative by His Highness Sheikh Nasser bin Hamad Al Khalifa to form a coordination body for charity work and unify the GCC efforts in delivering humanitarian and relief aids in time of disasters. His Highness Sheikh Nasser bin Hamad Al Khalifa expressed most sincere thanks and appreciation to the GCC leaders for their prominent humanitarian role and support to charity work all over the world. He pointed out the significance of unifying the humanitarian efforts through the committee to promote the culture of charity work among GCC people. Housing Minister led Bahrain's delegation to UN Habitat meeting. Minister of Housing and Urban Planning Amina bint Ahmad Al Rumaihi led Bahrain's delegation to the inaugural meeting of the second session of the United Nations Human Settlements Program, which is held in the Kenyan capital Nairobi from June 5th to 9th. The delegation comprises representatives from the Foreign Ministry, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Planning, and Bahrain Center for Strategic International and Energy Studies. The meeting was attended by Kenyan President William Ruto, the UN Habitat Executive Director Maimuna Sharif, and members of the General Assembly. The speeches of the inaugural session cast light on the main issues to be discussed in the second session of the UN Habitat and the efforts in implementing the new urban agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals 2030. The Minister of Housing and Urban Planning will address the session tomorrow, Tuesday, and highlight the Kingdom's efforts in implementing the SDGs 2030, specifically Goal 11, which stipulates making cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Tamkin to launch programs to support Bahrain's career development. In line with the directives of His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa to carry on efforts to improve the living standards of Bahraini nationals through more initiatives, the Labour Fund announced the commencement of work on several program tracks focused on supporting wages of Bahraini employees and supporting their career development in various fields. This followed the agreement between the executive and legislative branches on the budget law for fiscal years 2023-2024, which encouraged the launch of initiatives aimed at increasing wages of Bahrainis employed in the private sector through wage support programs dedicated to a number of occupations, as well as the enhancement of career development programs for Bahrainis and incentivizing enterprises to increase Bahrainization rates. These directives will strongly contribute to the achievement of the national goal of making Bahrainis the first choice of employment in the labor market. Bahrain marked World No Tobacco Day. An event was organized to mark the World No Tobacco Day, being held this year under the slogan "Let's Grow Food, Not Tobacco." The National Committee for Combating Smoking and Tobacco, all kinds of products, held the event under the patronage of Supreme Council of Health President, Lieutenant General Dr. Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdullah Al Khalifa. The event was also attended by the Minister of Health, Dr. Jalila bint Al Sayed Jawad Hassan, the Minister of Youth Affairs, Rawan bint Najib Tawfiki, and other senior officials. The SCH President stressed Bahrain's pioneering achievements within the comprehensive development process led by His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa, with the support of His Royal Highness Prince Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa, the Crown Prince and Prime Minister. He highlighted the kingdom's strides, which spanned many domains, including the health sector, to prevent diseases and combat their causes. Intermediate and secondary school results announced. Dr. Mohammed bin Mubarak Juma, the Education Minister, has extended sincere thanks and gratitude to His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa and to His Royal Highness Prince Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa, the Crown Prince and Prime Minister, for their support for the educational process. The Minister expressed his pride in all the Ministry's affiliates for the efforts they had made to ensure the success of the academic year. Dr. Juma made the statements while endorsing the second-term academic results of secondary and intermediate students. The pass rate for intermediate school certificate was 72%. Those who did not pass the final exam will have to retake it in the second round, in which the success rate is expected to increase. The success rate for grade 12 students was 98.3%. The Minister held personal calls with the top achievers, congratulating them on their outstanding results. He also paid tribute to their parents for their tangible efforts in following up on their children's academic achievements. The Minister affirmed that the only criterion to obtain the Education Ministry scholarships will be the students' cumulative GPA. The results of the second semester of the current academic year, endorsed by Dr. Mohammed bin Mubarak Juma today. The Education Minister today will be available online through the Students' Exam Results digital service available on the National E-Government portal and the Education portal provided by the Education Ministry, EduNet. Now we will be back after a very short break. The 16th branch of Megamart and Macromart supermarkets in Bahrain has opened in Sahla. The best offers are available to the customers at affordable rates. Everyone is welcome. During and around the opening day, a variety of fish including salmon, meat and dairy products, roastery, frozen items, food and non-food items, groceries, fruits and vegetables, electronics, garments and ready-to-eat food items are available to the customers at affordable rates. Hearty welcome to all. Megamart and Macromart, your favorite shopping destination. Welcome back. Police arrested 2 with intoxicating drinks in Budaya. Police have arrested 2 individuals aged 29 and 32 for their involvement in the production of intoxicating beverages within a residence located in the Budaya area. The Northern Governorate Police Directorate confirmed the arrests and revealed that the suspects are of Asian nationality. The arrests were made following an investigation prompted by a tip-off received by the authorities. Detailed information regarding the specific location of the illegal brewing unit aided in the successful operation. The suspects were caught red-handed during the raid, with undisclosed quantities of illicit drinks and equipment, including gas cylinders used for the brewing process, being seized at the scene. Legal procedures are taken to refer the suspects to the public prosecution. Saudi Arabia announced mandatory employment tests for Indians. Saudi Arabia has made it mandatory for Indians to take the skill verification program test, according to a report by the Economic Times. The move is part of the kingdom's efforts to enhance the quality of its professional workforce and combat the issue of unqualified employees. The test is mandatory for specific categories of jobs in the initial phase, with the intention of gradually expand it to encompass all other occupations. Launched in 2021, the skill verification program aims to ensure that only qualified professionals are allowed to work in Saudi Arabia. The skill verification program began its first phase in India in December 2022, according to the Ministry of Human Resources and Social Development, and as reported by Saudi Press Agency. The launch initially took place in New Delhi and Mumbai. Dubai can now produce nearly 500 million gallons of desalinated water a day. Dubai's daily production capacity of desalinated water has reached almost 500 million gallons. The Dubai Electricity and Water Authority extended the water transmission pipeline network by 64 kilometers last year, which is said to have cost around dirham 358 million, according to local sources. The authority's total production capacity of desalinated water has now reached 490 million imperial gallons per day, which is part of its long-term goal of serving more than 1.5 million residents. Dubai is surpassed prominent utilities worldwide and has achieved one of the lowest percentages of water network losses worldwide, said Saidal Taylor, the authority's managing director and chief executive. The new pipeline extensions have remote monitoring to control key water networks around the clock, while wheels operated from a control center to reduce interruptions. The extensions also included the supply, installation, testing and commissioning of glass-reinforced epoxy water pipes of different diameters. NASA held the first public meeting about sightings of UFOs. NASA has convened a public meeting to discuss sightings of unexplained phenomena in the sky. The space agency has convened a panel to examine sightings of what it calls unidentified aerial phenomena, which many refer to as UFOs. Now the group has given its first public discussion ahead of a report due to be published later this year. The space agency said the work was aimed at making it easier for people to report those unidentified aerial phenomena, as well as to examine what exactly they might be. But representatives said that the panel involved in the work had received sustained abuse and had forgotten the way of that work. Harassment only leads to further stigmatization of the unidentified aerial phenomena field, significantly hindering the scientific progress and discouraging others to study this important subject matter, said Nikki Fox, Associate Administrator of NASA's Science Mission Directorate. Nonetheless, NASA said that it would be working to examine those reports of UAPs. The 16-member panel includes experts in everything from physics to astrobiology and began its work last June. Wednesday's session is the first public hearing by the group, which itself represents the first such inquiry into unidentified aerial phenomena by NASA. Graphic images released by Indian authorities as families pray for miracle. Authorities in Odisha have released graphic pictures of dozens of bodies of the victims of Friday's train crash as services finally resumed on the tracks involved. The Odisha government hopes the images will help families of passengers to find their loved ones' remains. The names of around 300 injured passengers who are still in hospital have also been released. Officials say preliminary investigations point to an error in the electronic signaling system as being the most likely cause of the crash, which killed at least 275 people and left more than 1,100 injured. India's Railways Minister, who has faced calls from the opposition to resign over the crash oversaw the resumption of train services on Sunday night after some 51 hours of rescue and restoration work. With that, we come to the end of today's news. Stay tuned for daily news updates in BMC News Live English at 7:30 p.m. every day. I am Vinod Narayanan signing off from BMC News Live. Good night.